Hey, Fly Girl. I'm René Vengelsdorf, Aviation CEO, FAA board alum, and high performance coach. Whether you're chasing your first discovery flight or leading at 40,000 feet, this show is your runway for bold career moves, real mentorship, and stories from women rewriting their flight plan. From the cockpit to the control tower, we're building the future of aviation one fly girl at a time. Welcome to the Fly Girls Guide podcast. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Fly Girls Guide to Aviation Careers podcast. I am thrilled to have Jamie Munoz with me today. Jamie, welcome from across the DFW Metroplex.
Thank you so much, Renee. I'm excited to be here and I appreciate you asking me.
Awesome. Well, you are based at the Addison Airport as the general manager for an FBO there. What does that mean? Like, first of all, tell our audience what an FBO is and what the business does and then what you do within the business.
Sure. So we're a fixed base operation. So essentially we are one of 3 gas stations here at Addison Airport. We like to say we're like the Buc-ee's of the airport, but my competitors might agree or disagree with that. But we provide fuel to about 40 based aircraft that hangar here with us, and then to transient aircraft coming through the DFW Metroplex. We're just about 20 minutes north of downtown, so we do compete a little bit with Love Field and McKinney. But it's one of the busiest, it is the busiest single runway regional airport in the country. So we see a lot of activity around here.
Oh, wow. So tell me about that. Like, you're fueling aircraft, but there's a lot more to it than someone just like driving their car up to Buc-ee's and pumping some gas and using the clean bathrooms.
No, there definitely is. So our facility is on 17 acres here at Addison. We opened in 2022. It's brand new, built from the ground up. I was here before we opened wearing a hard hat at the construction site. So it's really awesome to have been a part of something from the beginning. And so we have a team of about 30 employees that consist of customer service and line service technicians that take care of everything from fueling to towing, the full range of concierge services that we offer to all of our customers. In addition, we have a lot of customers that aren't actually here at our facility, but they're somewhere else on the airport. And so we fuel and tow other aircraft and customers all over Addison Airport. Providing hangar to those 40 aircraft also comes with a lot of office leases as well. We have we have offices in 2 of our hangars, and then we also have customer offices here in the terminal. So I'm essentially a landlord and a fuel supplier, and some days I'm a maintenance technician on the roof trying to reset 2-ton air conditioning units and find out exactly where the roof leak is. And you just never know. Like I've told you before, every day is a new adventure, but it's great. And we have, not only do I feel like we have the best employees in the business, but our customers are truly remarkable. And it's one of the things with hangar space being at such high demand. We're at about 130 to 140% occupancy here. So it really allows us to be selective about who our clients are. Not just from, obviously you want somebody that flies a lot and takes a lot of fuel, but just people that treat our employees with kindness, with respect. It really is a beautiful thing to see the interactions here between our customers and our team members, because it does feel like a family.
I love that so much. And just speaking, like if someone's listening and they aren't familiar with FBOs at all, it can be a little bit chaotic. So very different than commercial aviation. A lot of times you're allowing a airplane owner or passenger to come through the gates and drive around the airplanes for drop off. Sometimes you're arranging catering. You're certainly getting birds out of the hangars so they're not leaving bird poop on the planes. I mean, there are just so many different things that you're doing, really making sure that planes are secure and safe. They don't get damaged. They're cleaned and fueled on time. They're pulled out of the hangars, and gosh, with 140% occupancy, you've got them stacked pretty well in there. So pulling airplanes out and getting the one in the back out for a customer on time, and then putting everything back in, and
Yeah.
making sure that everything's protected and that your staff is on the ramp when airplanes are coming in. All of that requires a great deal of coordination and trust among your employees that everyone's going to be doing their job, I'm guessing.
Oh, absolutely, it does. And that's why, again, I sound a little biased, but I really do think that we have some of the best in the business. We've got, like, our line service supervisors has over 30 years of experience. And I tell him all the time, like, he's forgotten more about line service than I'll ever know because he is just a wealth of knowledge. I remember when our CEO met him one time and he said, did he prepare that he was telling me, or is that literally just off the cuff? And I'm like, no, really, like, he just is that knowledgeable. Our line service manager and our FBO experience manager, they are two of the best support systems that I could have ever dreamed of. So when you talk about that trust, it absolutely, I've gone through so much in my personal home life this last year than more than I ever had before. And so having that team there that I know if I'm gone, everything is still running smoothly. They're taking care of everything. Our employees, our customers, all the logistics, the facility, it really makes such a huge difference. So yes, we are constantly trying to, manage all of the different moving pieces of running an FBO and keeping up with everybody's unpredictable flying schedules. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the right people, you can have the most beautiful facility, and it doesn't matter. And so I'm very grateful for all of these bodies around here. They're amazing.
Well, that doesn't come without great leadership. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here and ask you what leadership characteristics you think that you have that have enabled you to build a team like that.
So I think it really is shocking to me how many of my team members have worked at other FBOs and the stories they tell me about never being treated with kindness and never having a general manager or sometimes even a manager, direct manager, that was present. So, like, if I'm outside running around, sometimes in high heels, I can't tell you how many times they've been like, oh my gosh, I worked at, this FBO for 8 years and that GM never stepped foot on the ramp. So I think just showing up and making sure that they see that I'm not afraid to do the work. There's certain jobs I have no business doing, but I'm not afraid to get out there and help wherever I can. And also just being kind. Like, these are people with lives, with families, with things going on outside of these walls that nobody knows about. And I think it's very important to remember that as a manager. I mean, I am the example of how I want them to treat each other. And so if I treat them poorly or if I'm condescending or arrogant, then I can only expect them to behave that way with their colleagues. And so I want to be a good example for them of how I expect them to treat each other and how I expect them to treat our customers.
Well, I love that. And it's evident in every facility that I've seen you manage or work at. Your people always speak very highly of you. How did you get to where you are? How does one become an FBO manager?
I started out in customer service about 24 years ago, and I was going to school to be a journalist, and I just needed a job, and it just randomly worked out. I knew nothing about aviation. I had no plans of pursuing a career in aviation and never thought about it. I think at the time I had ridden on one commercial flight when I was 18 years old. And so when I got thrown into this environment, I fell in love with it. I loved the fast pace. I loved all the different customer interactions. And so every time there was an opportunity for advancement or promotion, I raised my hand. Even when I had terrible managers that told me I had no business doing that or I wasn't qualified, and other females, which is so disappointing. My first manager told me that she would hold my spot for me if I got the promotion so that I could come back once it was too overwhelming for me. And so,
You didn't go back though.
oh no, I did not.
I love it.
And so I just continued to raise my hand. I tried to outwork everybody I worked with. I still made a lot of mistakes. I was young. I had a lot of growing up to do, but I had a lot of really good people that I could watch and learn from, and I had a lot of people that I learned exactly what I never ever wanted to be in this industry. And so both of those shaped me into what I am today. So I worked in charter sales. I actually managed the charter sales department for about 7 years. I also did business development, and then I was approached by a Fortune 100 company to come and oversee aviation software development. So I kind of got out of the operation piece and went into technology, which again, I never expected to go there. But sometimes, the twists and turns, you've got to take a chance and do something that makes you a little uncomfortable and see what comes of it. So it's really rewarding because while I was working in software, I met the team at Galaxy and we became fast friends, and they were doing a lot of usability testing on our programs. And so when they were breaking ground here in Addison, my husband and I were looking to move back to the DFW area, so the timing just worked out perfect. And now my team here uses that same software program that I was helping to oversee development of at my last job. So it's all come together beautifully. And this job, I mentioned earlier, being a part of something from the very beginning is a very unique opportunity. And I always had a lot of roles in leadership and managing people, and I always had theories about things that I felt like should be in place. But it's hard when you go into an organization and you inherit processes, you inherit people, so you inherit the good and the bad with that. So being able to kind of set the tone and set the expectations and put all those philosophies and theories that I had about leadership into place here has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life.
I love it. Well, I too started in journalism and ended up in aviation. It's actually, the skills are really good because you learn tenacity and you learn lots of really good questioning and listening techniques in journalism that end up applying well in aviation, I think.
Our mutual friend, Kat Wren, when I interviewed her, she was telling me all about how she was going to be this sports journalist. And before she left my office, I said, you got to be careful. This industry can be addictive. And she said she didn't roll her eyes at me, but she kind of did, like, just in her mind. And she was like, this lady doesn't know what she's talking about. And, all these years later, look who was right.
Yep, absolutely. Jamie, I also have a journalism degree and got my start in that world. And I found that so many things translate from journalism to aviation. And you would never guess that. But looking for objections, kind of digging into the bottom of things, really investigating when something goes wrong, like what could have been done better. Um, Building a strong network of people that you can lean on. All of those are really important skills in aviation, and especially, as you were saying, in software development and in managing an FBO. But there are also other skills that I know that you've developed along the way and opportunities that you've looked for to grow and to learn. If you were going to be advising someone like, hey, here are things that you could be taking on throughout your career, or learning or investigating in areas where you could be growing, what would those things be if you were challenging someone who's younger than you?
Sure. I do this with my team. I send out emails regularly about different opportunities, and some of the most consistent are mentorship. MBAA has a mentoring program, which is great. That's how I've met some of my favorite mentees, and we've developed these great relationships. And the beautiful thing about it, one of my favorite stories is one of my current mentees actually works for one of my competitors. And it's still like, that's a beautiful evolvement that I've seen in the industry, is that it used to be everybody worked in silo, everyone was a competitor, but now it seems like we're kind of realizing that in order to truly be a safe industry, we actually have to work together. It doesn't mean we have to share trade secrets or a book of business with someone, but I can help her and give her some of the things that I've learned and some of the tools that have helped me to grow professionally, because you never know what's going to happen down the road. So I strongly encourage anyone to join the mentorship program, regardless of age. I mean, I have mentors and I have mentees, even though I've been doing this for more than a couple of decades. Young professionals also, MBAA has a great young professionals program. I was fortunate enough to be a part of that group for a long time and co-chaired it with Ian Lump up until last year when we handed over the reins. And they are such a great group. They are some of the most organized and hardest working folks. You know, they just had the DC fly-in. They're always having different opportunities. And Kat and I, while we were on that council together, actually started a group called Yo Pro Go. And it is the only group within NBAA where young professionals can join and they don't have to be a member or work for a member company of NBAA. And so there's regular like virtual meetings, and you also get invited to like volunteer opportunities. And so I think those three things are huge. Also exploring, I know I sound like an ad for NBAA. I do a lot of volunteer work with them, but they have great scholarships as well. Between them and your local aviation regional groups, there are so many scholarships that go unawarded because they didn't have applicants. And so I would highly encourage, I received an NBAA scholarship when I was young. I went and got my dispatch license using it, and I learned so much doing that. And I was so appreciative of that. So I think those are just a few of the things that I would definitely do because they're all affordable, and it takes time, and it'll improve your networking skills and hopefully help you build a good community around you.
I love it. That was a bonus because not only you answered my question, but also told all of us that we could probably do some of those things for free or scholarship. And I think that's just an incredible way to advance your professionalism in your career.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that are most challenging to you about managing an FBO?
You know, I think no matter what you're leading, the people aspect is always the hardest. And it's even harder, I think, when you genuinely care about them, because then things start to get in this gray area between business and personal. Because I mean, the people in this building, they are my second family, and you know, they're family to my husband and to my son as well. And so when you care about people that deeply, I think it can positively impact your operations. It can positively impact your bottom line, but it's also a very big and heavy load to carry at times. And I think that's probably the most challenging part.
Tell me more. How do you manage that?
It's you know, it's similar to being a parent, because the disappointment weighs heavy, and the excitement is more rewarding when you see them succeeding than anything you could possibly imagine. And that's really the only way I can compare it is to being a mom. And so, you know, I had an employee in my office yesterday, and his performance has kind of declined over the last several months. And so I'm trying to talk to him about that, and it really does weigh on me. And then I go home thinking about it, and you know, trying to see like what more can I do? How can I motivate? And so I think that is the hardest part because it's the most time consuming and it's the most emotionally draining. But again, it's also the most rewarding whenever you have worked with someone and coached someone, and you can see them turn things around. Or like I have an employee right now that's about to get hired on from another company, and she's probably going to go fly jets, and you know, just watching her grow and build her time, and just being able to celebrate in their success. So even though I think it's definitely the hardest part of my job and managing, I mean, of all the things that we manage here, the logistics, the building, the facility, the customers, the people, I think, are the hardest and the most rewarding.
What's been your biggest stretch assignment in your career? What's been the one that you were like, if I can actually pull this off, I'm going to be so impressed with myself?
I think it was when I went into technology, because I remember that first meeting I was sitting in, and they said, we brought in these consultants. They said, you know, this group KPIT, and I was like, you brought in the Pittsburgh airport? What? No, that was not. That was not. So, and then like listening to like the new lingo, even though this was an aviation centric company, like I was working with all people in technology that knew nothing about the day-to-day operations of an FBO. And so talking with developers, both, you know, in the United States and internationally, and learning the lingo of all that, I really at one point was like, I'm in over my head. Like, I don't think I can handle this. And then I convinced my boss to send me to some additional training to get my Scrum product owner certification. And that really kind of catapulted me into a better understanding of what I was working with. And then I realized, you know what, these are just people. Like, as long as I can clearly communicate my expectations and we can work together, this is doable, and we can create a successful product. And then COVID came, and I was like, oh boy. So I essentially lost everybody I had been working with because, nobody was working. The world kind of stood still. And so trying to recover from that and still deliver a successful product, which was now unfortunately delayed, that was probably one of the most stressful times in my career. But again, now I look at it here all these years later, and I see that software program up on the big screen in the back with the line service technicians using it all day, every day. And so it's rewarding to see that it actually came to fruition. And it's also really nice because I know who to call if there's an issue.
Yeah. So this is a tough question, and it's not one that I prepped you ahead of time for. What did you learn about yourself through that stretch assignment or that job?
That is a tough question. I think I learned what I had always been taught by my parents, which is, you treat everyone with the same amount of respect. And working for a large company, there's this unspoken rule of, the CEO of this big company or the executive vice president or this, and everyone was so intimidated and, oh my gosh, we got to get out of the way of the elevator, so-and-so's coming down. And I would go into those board meetings, and when they were wrong, I would see people much more senior than I just sitting quiet. And I realized that I had a voice, and I wasn't afraid to use it. And so I think I finally found a little bit of value in all of my experience to know that I could be bold and I could speak my truth on what I knew, because otherwise the product at the end of the day was going to suffer if I didn't. And so it was really eye-opening to me how bold I could be, and also very humorous to me, people's reactions after the meeting. They'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that to him. And again, I was brought up in, the janitor, the CEO, like it's not any different. So, and everything in between, we're all equals, and we all have opinions, and we all have experiences that drive those opinions. And I knew at the end of the day that what I was speaking was going to help us deliver a better product. And so I consistently went against the norm and spoke my truth.
I love it. What do you feel like are the limitations of being in an FBO as the manager? Are there limitations to where you can grow in your career? Or do you see other people who've left this role to move into different roles? What's the ceiling?
I don't think there really is a ceiling, because as long as you are putting yourself out there and networking and taking advantage of other industry opportunities, like I get to do this amazing job with this team that I love, but I also get to do, some speaking engagements, or I'll help, writers for a publication do an article, or I'll go do some like one-on-one coaching. And like I said, I do a lot of volunteer, like with mentorship. So I don't think there really is a ceiling, because once you start building those relationships, it becomes addictive, because that's kind of, again, your community. Like, even though it's just in this industry, that is my community of people, and I'm so fortunate for them. And it brings about opportunities that you never expect. So you never really know who you're going to establish a relationship with that's going to bring you up in a room where you're not present, when there's a great opportunity that might be just the right next move for you. So I think that the ceiling is only there if you choose for it to be.
Bam, that's a mic drop. I feel like we can close out the podcast. Jamie, thank you so much for being part of the podcast today and for sharing with us your brilliance and your love for aviation.
Thank you so much for having me, Renee. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. For additional resources, head over to flygirlsguide.com. If you're inspired to pursue a path in aviation or want to support the women who do, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if today's conversation sparked something for you, share it with a friend. It's one of the best ways to grow the Fly Girls Guide community. Until next time.